I give the call to the member for Fowler.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd also like to thank the member for Bradfield for bringing this matter of public importance to the House, and I also would like to congratulate her for being elected to represent her community here in the 48th Parliament. Look, since my election in May 2022, I have spoken in this House many times about the housing crisis and the devastating impact it's having on communities like mine in Fowler, where incomes are low and populations continue to grow, and of course our culturally diverse communities' needs. Like the member for Curtin, I too, in my first term, organised a housing forum where I brought together local, state and federal bodies to look at how we can address this housing issue, and looking at the mechanisms in place or not in place, and trying to bring people together to work together, because I think sometimes the solution is right there in front of our face, but we're not looking at it, and we are spending so much time in the Canberra bubble creating policies that at times I think are more of a barrier and a hindrance rather than creating unblocking the housing crisis. So I brought community housing together with organisations like the Gandagara Land Council, and from my understanding, the CEO, Michelle Williams, were grateful because I think last year the Gandagara Land Council, through that housing forum that I organised, managed to speak with a community housing group, and I believe there is a memorandum of understanding in place currently whereby housing could be built for the Indigenous community in Fowler on land owned by the Gandagara Land Council. So I'll be watching that space, because it's our role here in the federal parliament to facilitate those community groups, those industries, those individuals, to try and make lives easier for them. Look, the Price Out report by the Everybody's Home, a coalition of housing and social services group, shows renters earning $100,000 are now in housing stress. And in Sydney, renters are paying 48% of their income on rent. And as I mentioned, in Fowler, I hear from residents and families constantly about how they're forced to live in overcrowded homes, and seniors are also struggling, as well as renters being squeezed out. Fairfield City Council has approved land in Cecil Park and Horsley Park for more than 20,000 homes, but that means nothing without government stepping in to fund the East-West Metro Rail link to connect Western Sydney Airport to Parramatta and beyond. And it's not just about trains. Without proper investments in roads, drainage, schools, hospitals and utilities, we're not building homes, we're building hardship. Now, I understand that at a federal level we don't build homes, right? But we do set policies and we do hold the purse strings. That means the Commonwealth must take the lead in ensuring states and local governments are supported to deliver the infrastructure that unlocks housing supply. And that must happen in coordination, not confusion. We also cannot ignore the impact of migration. Migration enriches our nation, but it must be planned. If we continue increasing our population without proper planning for housing, services and infrastructure, we risk worsening inequality and weakening the social cohesion that holds this country together. The government can talk about targets, help to buy or housing accords, but unless we get the infrastructure and workforce right, we will continue to fall short. The National Housing Council has made it clear. Labour shortages, rising materials costs and low planning approvals are strangling supply. These aren't new problems, but they remain unsolved. That's why we need serious practical solutions. And let's start with coordinated funding across federal, state and local governments so infrastructures arrive before homes, not years later. Workforce investments through apprenticeships, faster recognition of overseas qualifications and more pathways into trades for women and multicultural communities. Smarter incentives like targeted tax reforms to encourage timely construction and discourage land banking. Unlocking public land, especially near transport and services, for homes and community facilities. These are not extreme ideas. These are reasonable, achievable steps that any government serious about solving this crisis should be considering. Housing is about community stability and fairness, and in Fowler we have the land, the talent and the will to lead housing innovation if only governments stop talking and start building. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.